Enemies of freedom, ladies and gentlemen, the enemies of freedom. They're out there every day, all day long, and we're going to fight them all day long. Welcome in. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense begins right now. Quick thanks and a shout out to Andy Hoosier for jumping in the seat at the last minute and filling in as a guest host yesterday, Greg. Hope you guys had fun. I didn't get a chance to listen. I did get the podcast up right away, but I had to help my aging parents go look at a place to move into. I'm going to do that again on Friday, but that's at 1 o'clock, so we won't interrupt the show at that point in time. But you know you got to do what you got to do sometimes, ladies and gentlemen. So we appreciate you understanding. CZ Studios fired up for you. Patriot Mobile mic lit up here at the ranch. It's a ranch. Ryan Petty has a real ranch. Ryan's sitting here in the wings waiting for us. We'll see if we can get him on video.
You have a ranch?
Yes. So, sort of, kind of. But I'm not as grandiose as John is. Greg in Dallas, Texas.
I'm not quite as grandiose as you.
Okay, there it is. Greg's always got it ready to rock and roll. He's on that switch. Greg in Dallas, Texas, with all the bells and whistles. How you doing, brother?
Not too bad. Here we are. It's pre-Friday.
Hey, I got some Facebook messages the other day. I hadn't looked at them in a while, and a number of folks had said thanks for the information on the Cove Pure Water over on Facebook. So, guys, that discount is still good for you through the end of the month. You've got 14 days to get in on that. Take advantage. We're going to try. We're working right now, negotiating to try to keep that $250 off for you. It's been very popular. And like I said here, it was a game changer at my house. It's been a game changer at everybody that I've talked to that's got it as well. So take advantage of that while we can. I want to throw that plug in. Greg, we're on all of our platforms today. You can tell people where to do that, participate in the chat, and we'll get started with Mr. Ryan Petty.
Yeah, sure. Places to watch the show. We're going to be YouTube and Rumble. Just do a search for Armed American Radio with Mark Walters. You can head over to X and watch us at AAR Mark. You can always head over to armedamericanradio.org or .com. Hit that menu icon, then select your watch live or listen live option. And to join our live chats, just download Telegram, create your profile, and search for Armed American Radio Conversations.
Yeah, and that'll do it. Welcome in. Let's get over to Ryan Petty, the man with a real ranch down in Florida. Ryan, how you doing, man? We going to get you in on video today? Were you able to find your computer? There's a story behind that, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe Ryan will want to tell us about it. How you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Mark. Great to be with you today. I found my computer.
Is it broken?
But I believe I'm on the wrong StreamYard link. So I'll ask you or Greg to send that to me, and I'll get logged in. I think I'm in the wrong spot.
Are you? Okay. Well, I'll invite a guest over there, and I'll shoot it over to you. How's that sound? You can check your email.
Sounds good.
We'll get that.
Have your people get a hold of my people, Mark, and we'll get this done.
I'll have my people get a hold of your people, Ryan. That'll work. Oh, throw me for a loop, man. How are you today? All good? Besides the computer issues?
Everything's great today. Been a fantastic Thursday. Nothing to complain about. We're getting lots of rain, which is what farmers need to grow all those things we grow, and I couldn't be happier.
And it's hot down there today, isn't it, in Florida? You're talking about rain, by the way. I just saw some reports coming out of the Uvalde area, Texas. Greg, that's not near you. Texas is a big place, but they're going to get over 20-plus inches of rain, historic, life-threatening flooding down there. So
they need it.
We're thinking about they don't need 20 inches in one fell swoop, but they could certainly use the rain. Not like that. The flooding down there is going to be horrific and treacherous, no question about it.
The aquifer needs it.
The aquifer might need it, but the people above the aquifer are going to be in a world of hurt down there. But anyway, Ryan, so, there's a lot of different places we can go today. I want to start with this. The National Rifle Association, guys, I love this. Seeing the NRA get really, really active has been just fantastic, Ryan. I think you'll agree with me on that count.
I couldn't agree more. We need a very strong, healthy, vibrant, and active NRA.
Here's what they're doing. They just joined forces with the, I was going to say NSSF. It's not NSSF. But they just joined forces with the Second Amendment Foundation, Firearms Policy Coalition, and the American Suppressor Association. Why? Well, they just filed a huge brief. And the press release from SAF is interesting. The Second Amendment Foundation and its partners have filed supplemental briefs in 3 ongoing NFA, National Firearms Act cases, considering the U.S. Supreme Court's recent rulings. Outlined in those briefs, ladies and gentlemen, are how the High Court's decisions in the Hemani case, the Wolford Lopez case, and Lander versus Louisiana Department of Corrections and Public Safety impact SAF's current NFA cases working their way through the lower courts. Based on the Lander ruling, SAF argues that Congress's taxing power cannot be used to support the NFA since the tax for suppressors and short-barreled firearms was eliminated in the One Big Beautiful Bill. Now, it's interesting because let's see if I can find it. Here it is, Your News And I love this headline because it's true. Pro-Second Amendment groups go after Trump administration in court. And, of course, Ryan, there's a picture up there of Harmeet Dillon. Well, that seems like, we've been praising Harmeet Dillon and Blanche and the rest of them, including the Cicada over at the ATF for months now. I mean, just going full bore support of the Second Amendment. Why are they continuing to, and I don't know if saying fight us on the NFA is the real, I don't know if I'm articulating that right. I don't think they're fighting, but we are winding up in court with them on a regular basis having to go after that. Why?
Mark, I've said this 100 times. I'm not a lawyer, but my guess is that at some level they have to defend the law as it's currently written, right? This is the executive branch reacting to legislation from the legislative branch, and whether they like it or not, they are required, as my understanding, constitutionally to defend it. Now, maybe that defense won't be as vigorous as it could have been or would have been under a Biden administration or another Democrat. But I think they're required to do that at least until we can get things changed, or they have time to go through the process to change the rules, which obviously the ATF can do as long as they're following congressional mandate, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to be real honest with you. I'm not real clear on that rulemaking procedure over there. I don't know all the nuance of it. But it would seem to me there's been plenty of time to take action on this, Ryan. I mean, at least in this in this second administration here, because we have seen, and it is, I don't even think it's arguable at this point, but this is clearly the most pro-gun, pro-Second Amendment, not necessarily pro-gun, but pro-Second Amendment administration this country has ever had. History will bear that out. We've just witnessed that. And what we've got coming up in the next year with SCOTUS is historic. No question about it. Now, Supreme Court, not part of the administration. They likely would have taken these cases anyway. However, because the Second Amendment Foundation and others would have been suing regardless who the president was in the executive branch. But nonetheless, it feels real good. It smells great. And I don't think there's any argument at this point. Agreed?
Yeah, I agree. It does seem like it's taken too long, and I'm not sure exactly what's going on. There are procedures where they have to give, a certain amount of time for public comment. And Mark, I can't remember. It's 30 days, 90 days, something like that.
I believe it's 90 days.
Yeah, there's a public comment period. But even with that public comment period, yes, this does seem like it's taking longer than it should. And that leads me to suspect that there are elements within the ATF that don't like the current political appointees and the direction the ATF's going, and they're probably doing what little bureaucrats do, which is gum up the works as best they can to slow things down because they want things to be the way they want things to be. And my guess that's probably what's going on.
Yeah, the time, again, we get really impatient here. Let's be real. Okay, we want everything yesterday, but we're getting things now faster than we've ever seen before. When you talk with guys like A.W.R. Hawkins, you talk with guys like Cam Edwards and Jared Yanis, who are very plugged in with this, as you are, and myself and others, we all felt that the administration, over the course of the first year, while they were doing and saying the right things at the right time, and signaling that they were going to continue to do the right things and say the right things, it still seemed to be moving slow. And then all of a sudden, wham, bam, we just started getting it hit one right after the other. And a lot of that was help from the Democrats who never laid off. You're famous for saying the left will what?
Never stop.
And when they don't stop and they continue to push, as California, New York, and Virginia did, in particular Rhode Island, we don't want to forget you, and Illinois and Maryland as well, we haven't seen that much pushback from New Jersey. In fact, we've seen some interesting moves forward in New Jersey with local municipalities, as you know, being on the board with me at the Citizens Committee for the Right to Keep and Bear Arms. One right after the other are beginning to relax the restrictions that they placed pre-Bruen in a post-Bruen environment on the carry requirements and the hassles and the costs that everybody had to go through by rolling a lot of that back. So there's been some positive movement there. Guys, we're getting ready to take a break. I want to read you part of this brief and quote from this Your News piece. Ryan, I'll send you a link for that, and it's great to have you up on camera, by the way. Thanks for doing that. Guys, Armed American Radio's Daily Defense continues. It's going to fly by. Buckle in. It always does. We've got Ryan Petty for the hour. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Yeah, well, have over there. Ryan Petty, welcome back in, my brother. It's always fun to have you here. Let's go back into yeah, it's great to have you. Let's go back into this your news piece. Historical tradition. And guys, the reason this is so important, pay very careful attention here. We talk about this all the time, and put this in the context of Bruen, the Bruen decision. The historical tradition and context that we have to put this in, that Bruen lays out for us, that has literally changed everything regarding our Second Amendment rights in cases going forward. In the brief, and again, this is from the National Rifle Association, partnered with the Second Amendment Foundation and the Firearms Policy Coalition, as well as the American Suppressor Association, of course, affected, as you know, by the National Firearms Act. Historical tradition recognizes only a narrow class of arms that fall outside the Second Amendment's protections, weapons that are both is the operative word, dangerous and unusual. So I could say both and are the two operative words here, because it has to be both. That's dangerous and unusual. Now, the left is trying to hinge, Ryan, as you know, in the upcoming cases that we have. The only hope and prayer they have is that the AR-15 is found to be both unusual and dangerous. And they're going to have a really tough time doing that when there are tens of millions of those firearms in common use across the country. So when you know that there's tens of millions, there are more of them than there are F-150 pickup trucks, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that now, always a method to the madness, because listen to the rest of this part of the brief. Short-barreled rifles are neither. Short-barreled rifles are lawful to possess in 45 states, and more than 1.1 million are lawfully possessed nationwide. So they are in common use, and necessarily, as a result, not unusual. Ryan, you're an FFL. Let's touch on that briefly. I find the number interesting when we know there are tens and tens of millions of AR-15s. I have multiple myself. You do too. Between you and I and all of our friends, we have probably hundreds of them just in our hands alone. And here we're making the case to SCOTUS, or I'm sorry, this is to the Sixth Circuit, not SCOTUS. But more than 1.1 million makes it in common use, Ryan, which tells me two things. That over a million is certainly in common use in this country, number one, and number two, tens and tens and tens of millions means it's impossible for the left to win when you consider what the previous cases, both Heller and Bruen said, in common use. It's impossible for the left to prevail on this, Ryan. This is yet another, what I believe will be a huge victory here. And I'm not sure how the administration is going to argue this. I don't know how they'll argue this, because they all support our rights. Fascinating. I
love to see the administration's lawyers arguing this and claiming they forgot their notes, or they're having a bad day, or talking about the weather or something. Look, I don't know what they're allowed to do or not allowed to do, but in that regard. But no, these are weapons in common use. The Supreme Court's been very clear on this. There's really no path for the left to take this argument with regards to America's most popular firearm, right? The AR-15. It just phenomenal. They're everywhere and they're in common use. There's no question about it. So there's really nowhere for them to go with this. So they've taken, as you and I talked before, they've taken the tact of trying to restrict wear or certain features of these firearms in an attempt to try to find some ground there. But every time they do something, I think they recognize, Mark, they're on shaky ground with regards to restrictions of both location and feature function of these firearms. And it's very likely that at some point, and we know next year, right, the Supreme Court has decided now to hear a couple of cases here that should clarify these things. And I'm hoping for an unequivocal, very clear ruling, hopefully written by Thomas or Alito, right? The majority, writing for the majority, and just laying it out clearly for every district around the country that these are both in common use and not particularly dangerous. and that they cannot be restricted because they fall clearly under the Second Amendment of the United States, and so the United States Constitution. So hopefully that happens by this time next year.
Yeah, and let's be. I want to be. Look, we're honest here on the program. All guns are dangerous, Ryan. All guns are dangerous when used improperly in the wrong hands.
So are automobiles.
Exactly.
So are household chemicals. So
exactly.
are so are baseball bats.
So is
They're
your
all
computer,
dangerous, Mark. Yeah.
So is your
if
computer.
you use them irresponsibly, they are dangerous. But in the hands of a responsible citizen, which is what the founders imagined when they codified the right. They didn't grant us the right. They codified the right. They knew that in responsible hands, these are not dangerous or unusually dangerous weapons, as the left likes to call them today. These are meant for protection and self-defense and protection against tyranny. And that is why the Second Amendment was codified, so that these weapons that are needed for in a free society to protect itself from evil that is in the society and from those that would take away our freedoms. That's why we have these rights. And there's a reawakening, and I think COVID, again, we talked about this before, I think a little bit. The silver lining in my mind was COVID was people waking up and realizing that we are just a couple of executive orders away from beyond authoritarianism.
Full-blown tyranny.
Full-blown tyranny, right? Doesn't take much.
We're getting ready to take another break. I told you to buckle in, guys. These segments are going to fly by. I want to take a deeper dive with you, Ryan, into the actual SBR factor here. What does it mean? To a lot of listeners, you might not know what that means, SBR, short-barreled rifle. We're going to tell you the difference. And then we're going to talk a little bit about, kind of theorize as, why was it put in the NFA anyway, simply because the barrel might be a little bit shorter by a fraction of an inch. In fact, if you go over that length by a minuscule fraction that your mind can't even comprehend, it's no longer an SBR. We're going to dig into that. Indeed. Welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. Armed American Radio's Daily Defense continues right now. We're talking with Ryan Petty, and you heard that Patriot Mobile rejoin. This is the Patriot Mobile microphone right here. You can see it on your cameras, and this is the Patriot Mobile Ranch right here, and we love Patriot Mobile. 80%. I think that number's higher right now. Some of the people I've talked to, it was estimated that 80% of their employees carry guns at work, and they're encouraged to do so. I think the number's higher, closer to 90%, which is... Ryan, let's go back to the... I want to get into some nuance here. You ready to get in the weeds with me on this a little bit?
Let's go.
There is some brilliance in the way this brief is written. And by that I mean, ladies and gentlemen, and I was going to pull this up on the screen for you, but I think I'm going to pop around a little bit too fast, and it wouldn't really do well on the screen for you. But nonetheless, historical tradition recognizes, as I pointed out, only a narrow class of arms that fall outside the Second Amendment's protections, weapons that are both dangerous and unusual. I want to reiterate that. It's very important. Then they mentioned the 1.1 million that we talked about. We compared that against the tens of millions of AR-15s that are out there. And he says, continuing in the brief, nor are they uniquely dangerous. Short-barreled rifles do not meaningfully differ in function or lethality from other common rifles. Now listen to the way this is written, Ryan. Long-barreled rifled firearms is what he's referring to, meaning rifles. Or handguns. Short-barreled rifled firearms, which is what a handgun is. Brilliantly written. The comparison is phenomenal. Therefore, short-barreled rifles are protected arms. I love the way this is argued. And I got to hand that sounds a lot to me like Second Amendment Foundation, Alan Gottlieb writing right there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does. You write an argument that twists them into the pretzels that they are, the logic pretzels that they are, and you get them to defend something that later on down the road they realize, oh, we shouldn't have defended that. Not unlike the Ketanji Brown Jackson misstatement she made a couple of rulings ago, where she all but admitted something that the left didn't want her to admit. So that's this is brilliant arguing. Look, for those listeners that don't know the definition of a short-barreled rifle, just so you understand it, and I couldn't agree more that these are no more dangerous than any other firearm. But a short-barreled rifle, by definition, this is found in the Code of Federal Regulations, right? 27 CFR 478.11. It says a short-barreled rifle, It's a rifle having one or more barrels less than 16 inches in length, and any weapon made from a rifle, whether by alteration, modification, or otherwise, if such weapon as modified has an overall length of less than 26 inches. Nothing in that definition, Mark, makes that firearm more or less dangerous than any other rifle on the planet. And the only reason, to my understanding, that it was put in was because they were worried about gangsters back in the day in trench coats hiding firearms and committing crimes. Look, the number of people that are hurt or injured or killed every year by rifles in the United States is a small fraction of the percentage of those that are harmed with firearms in general. Overwhelmingly,
400
if you
on
wanted,
average.
yeah, if you wanted to make the argument, you might, the left might try to make the argument that handguns are actually more dangerous than rifles, just based on sheer numbers. Now, they don't want to go there because they know how unpopular it would be to take away, attempt to take away handguns. So they make these arguments based on fear and lack of knowledge. Right. But again, nothing in that definition that I just read to you makes that any more dangerous. Now, for the average gun owner, what does that mean? You know, and I have to explain this to my customers sometimes. Well, I can't put, you know, they'll order a rifle and they'll want a certain stock put on it. Well, I can't put that stock on it because you've got a 10.5 or 14-inch barrel. You've got to have, you know, the overall rifle length has to be 26 inches. So we've got to put, you know, some kind of a, well, the way most gun owners or firearms owners have gotten sort of complied with the law is by making it a pistol, right? Making it, turning that same firearm into a pistol with a pistol brace, and they're on the right side of the law. Now, again, that brace on the back of that gun doesn't make it any more dangerous or any less dangerous than any other firearm. So this whole, it's a charade that we're going through this. It's phenomenal to hear that the arguments being made, and hopefully, again, my hope is by the end of next year, we've gutted the majority of the NFA because it's just indefensible.
Yeah, and I want to point out, too, that this is written brilliantly. The NFA is a registration and taxation scheme, period. Registration requirements do not meaningfully serve the purpose of ensuring that owners know how to operate guns safely and are instead often seen as a half a loaf measure aimed at deterring gun ownership. Now, let's go back to that short-barreled rifles. The left has been very, very good over the years in hijacking the language. And they've been successful using phrases like assault weapons. And to a point, it's just become part of the lexicon. It's just out there. We've referred to it that way, too. We try not to, but that's just the way it's referred to at this point, okay? And I hate to do it. I catch myself doing it all the time. But it kind of just is what it is. So we take that back. They did the same thing with the SBR, or short-barreled rifle. And the left will tell you, well, that's a dangerous weapon. That's a short-barreled rifle. And if you press them on what that means, they don't know anything about what Ryan just told you, ladies and gentlemen. They don't even know what it means. They've just fallen for the trap that it's an SBR, it's short-barreled rifle, meaning SBR. To them, it's dangerous inherently because it's a short-barreled rifle. They know nothing about what Ryan just mentioned to you. Now, moving ahead a little bit here, Ryan, we started the conversation off with the administration's defense of some of these laws. And I want to point to Harmeet Dillon here because she did make some comments regarding this. And her comments are very, very sensible. I understand people have policy differences with DOJ's enforcement of federal laws. But in my opinion, and I've said this to many gun groups, the appropriate place to launch those policy discussions is in Congress, not with us. Mm-hmm. Now, she said that during an interview just 2 weeks ago with DCNF, and DCNF is the Daily Caller News Foundation, okay?
Yeah. 30.
So let me go to the break with this. Again, I want to repeat this, very important, because when we come back, we're going to talk about this. I've said this to many gun groups. The appropriate place to launch those policy discussions is in Congress, not with us. Why is that important, folks? And we'll talk about this on the other side in the final segment. Is because Congress makes the law. Congress must change the law. This branch at DOJ is bound constitutionally to enforce federal law. They do not make federal law. Now, we can go back to the ATF and we can argue all day. There are policies, there are rules that had criminal penalties. That's why that's all being dismantled. That's how tyrants take advantage of what's available to them. And that's why we scream, Congress needs to fix this so the ATF can't do this going forward, which is exactly what this administration is attempting to do. Todd Blanche told me that himself on this program. We'll be right back. So you'll find them all there, including Daniel Defense, which sells a lot, Ryan, of the SBRs because they are legal in 45 states. You just have to jump through a little bit of hoops right now in order to do that. That's what these lawsuits are so important, Ryan. We're going to wipe this out. I got to go farther into Harmeet Dillon's statement here because she's on her game. She really is. She says, and I understand people have policy differences with DOJ's enforcement of federal laws, but in my opinion, and I've said this to many gun groups, the appropriate place to launch those policy discussions is in Congress, not with us. We have, I mean, not me, but other people in this building regularly respond to all kinds of litigation on behalf of the United States where I don't necessarily agree with what we're defending. It's the other team that picks and chooses which laws they're going to enforce, so that's not what we do. Now, Costas Moros, the SAF Director of Legal Research and Education, said this: Trump administration defending unconstitutional laws. The group did not feel let down, and I quote him. He said, "We are mostly happy with the Trump admin, but they are defending some gun laws we think are unconstitutional, like the NFA's registration requirements. It's not surprising that they are defending such laws, as the DOJ will generally always defend federal law subject to limited exceptions. But we will do our job and defeat them in those instances where federal law violates the Constitution." And Ryan, that's just exactly what has to happen. And that's the explanation. So when we question why they do it, they're bound to do that. And it's our responsibility to fight them and knock them down a few pegs, and we will do it, and they will be happy when we get it done because this DOJ didn't make the laws, Ryan. They've got no choice but to defend.
Yeah, that's right. And I'm grateful for folks like Costas that are out there fighting that good fight and doing the work that they do, and they will prevail in the judicial arena, but it's on us. Now, you want to jump in the fight, folks. Anybody within the sound of my voice, you want to jump in. It's not too early to start thinking about November. We have got to win the midterm elections, and we've got to start thinking about grab every gun owner you know, everybody that's on the fence, take them to the range, convince them that firearms are a proud tradition in the United States, and they'll have fun. I've never met a person that's gone to the gun range with me that hasn't enjoyed going to the gun range. They absolutely love it, right? And so we need firearms owners and those that are friends of firearm owners out to the polls and voting this November. If we don't prevail, if we don't hold the Senate, if we don't hold the House, the good work that folks like Harmeet and others are doing in the executive branch and the work that the SAF and these other organizations are doing on the judicial side will be all for naught because we'll get a bunch of radical leftists in Congress that will do nothing but spend the next 2 years trying to impeach President Trump and frustrating all the good work that administration has been doing on our behalf. We have got to get out of the polls. This is not one you can sit out, folks. And if you're thinking about sitting out because it doesn't matter, everything is on the table in November.
Yeah, guys, I can't stress that enough either, Ryan. I appreciate you bringing that up, and here's why. Let's assume that the worst of the worst happens and the House and Senate fall to the Democrats. The socialist communists right now, ladies and gentlemen, is what they are. Trump will veto anything they put forward. It's going to be, what's going to happen is all of the work that we've done, think about it in these terms, this historic momentum that we have behind us regarding the Second Amendment right now will just come to a screeching halt. It will just stop. Nothing will go backwards, but what they will do, Ryan, is show us their arses. They will show us exactly what they intend to do if they win the White House in 2028. And if they come off a strong midterm, that's how they're going to be feeling. They're going to be just bloated and gloating like crazy. And they're going to be telling you that this is what, and they're going to tell you, this is what we're going to do for America in 2028. And you're going to see their anti-gun agenda right before your eyes, because they will move on that Virginia bill that both Virginia senators have already put forward to try to bring Virginia's gun grab to the nation. So it is critical that you get out and vote. Go ahead, Ryan.
Well, and they're gonna try to entice voters with stories about fairness and equity, and how the rich aren't paying their fair share. They're gonna confuse the conversation, but the whole point of it, my friends, is so that they can gain power and control, so that they can move us away from the constitutionally protected republic that we are into what they view as the next step, which is a pure democracy, or a majority rules democracy, where they believe that they will inevitably have more votes than we will have, and they will one by one start taking away our freedoms. And first on that list will be the right to self-defense and the right to keep and bear arms, because they cannot accomplish the big part of their plan, which is a complete authoritarian takeover of the United States and fundamentally transforming us into an authoritarian society. Think Iran, if you will, and living under a regime like that. That's where the left wants to take us, and our firearms stand in the way. But we can stop it. We can stop it at the ballot box right now. And my friends, the ballot box is a lot easier than the ammo box.
Yeah, think about this. Well, you've got all these historic wins. Supreme Court just ruled that these guns can't be banned. What am I so worried about? What can the Democrats do? Let me tell you exactly what they'll do. The efforts in court, if this stops and we do not fix the NFA right now, guys, I'm going to tell you right now, imagine a Democrat socialist commie administration coming in, taking back the ATF. They will put every gun they can back on that NFA list. They will do it through regulation, just like the Biden administration did.
That's right.
That's how they'll attempt to roll back. Well, if we can't ban them because SCOTUS said they can't be banned, we're going to make it miserably difficult for somebody to buy one. And they're going to regulate it in their attempt right out of existence. See Virginia. Ryan, thank you for being here, man. I do appreciate it greatly. I appreciate you popping in and having the discussion with us on short notice today. Thanks for being here, man.
You bet.
Yeah, we're going to see Ryan in the round table as well, coming up this weekend. And by the way, you know who's coming up on the show? Sheriff Kurt Hoffman is giving us an hour of his time. And we're going to go after the Pinellas Park Police Department down there in Florida, in Pinellas County, who took this kid to the woodshed. And, well, Sheriff Kurt Hoffman, with some pretty bold statements, made it clear, no, that's not going to fly around here, Law Dog. Guys, we're going to get up and do it again tomorrow. Be here, 5 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Pacific. Enjoy your day. We'll see you on the radio. Thanks for tuning in.